With Gamescom now firmly in our rear view, we learned a lot of new details about the upcoming release of Machine Games' Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
What if I told you there was a connection between ancient cultures around the world? A great circle. Does it exist? Is it the key to some lost power? That's up to you to uncover. I'm Troy Baker, and I play Indy. It's humbling playing a character that so many people, myself included, look up to. As a kid, seeing Indiana Jones in the theater for the first time was a defining moment for me. And I never would have guessed that all these years later, I would be the one wearing the hat. But here I am. It's been a dream come true. A dream that I cannot wait for you to live for yourselves. The beauty of a first-person game like this is that we all get to feel what it's like to become Indy. You are the one who cracks the whip, who feels the weight of every punch and the thrill of finding every clue. Indy is such a unique character. A professor, an archaeologist, a brawler, an explorer, the quintessential all-around adventurer. And this game has everything you'd expect from an Indiana Jones adventure. Mysterious artifacts, cunning villains, ancient discoveries, hard-hitting action. It's a world of constant danger where you've got to think on your feet to stay alive. The Great Circle spans the entire globe, from snake-filled jungle temples to scorpion-riddled desert tombs. Stunning open areas to explore freely, full of secrets for you to discover. And you'll get more than just the classic whip and revolver. Indy's journal and his camera will immerse you in the mystery, providing extra info on all of your finds so you can appreciate all of the little historical details he obsesses over. And those details are your key to solving the ancient puzzles that hold the secrets you're after. But ancient secrets don't come easy. It's best to have an exit strategy. This is an incredible new way to experience Indiana Jones, and I can't wait for you to play it. Hold on to your hat.
While at Gamescom, the design director Jens Andersen and creative director Axel Tervenius did a few interviews about the game. The first one is coming from IGN. The first question asked about the comedy in the game, as it is something that is difficult to translate into a game.
There are several different ways how we try to implement that component, because as you say, it's a truly key beat to hit the tone of Indiana Jones and making sure that it has the correct vibe. It's also super important for us that it doesn't become comedy.
Right.
So it needs to just have the right amount of it to feel right. And there are several parts to it. One is, of course, within the narrative, how things are written in terms of cutscenes and dialogue and VO. And then performance by Troy Baker to make sure that that is delivered. But we also communicate that component in the smallest detail. It can be in the minute-to-minute gameplay, in hand-to-hand combat, in subtle animation, a lot of different small components that all together comes together balanced, and then feel the feel of that comedy is there.
Yeah, it's all about finding that tone, right? Finding a banjo in the world that you can smack people with or things like that.
So they didn't really give us anything substantive in that answer. It doesn't really worry me, since I assume that most of the comedic moments will likely come in the cutscenes, and rightfully so. The next question asked about the horror moments within the game.
It's been a balance, to say, for sure, because we are really focusing on making sure that adventure comes first. But as you say, there's a sense of horror in there as well. So we've been trying to get moments throughout gameplay where it becomes a little bit creepier, it becomes a little bit eerie, and the game pauses a bit, slow down. But finding that balance between the cinematic big beats, set pieces, and then the horror components. That has been a tricky balance, but I think we're on a very good spot at the moment with hitting the balance right.
So, of course, Indiana Jones does have some moments of horror, and as they'd said, the focus is on adventure within the game. But there are those moments where we get to see or feel that horror. The next question asked about how much they were taking from the films to portray within the game.
Primarily, the main reference is Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's the one we've been dissecting the most. But all three early movies are important reference to us.
I noticed the boulder from Raiders is back. Is this thing just stalking him for his entire life? How did that ball return?
I don't know what we're saying about that, actually.
Well, there's more of that to see when the game is out. So we have a little tease of it, but there are some familiar aspects in the game for sure.
So much of the inspiration for the game is coming from Raiders of the Lost Ark. That said, they have made this game as if it is its own movie within a franchise. We can see that this is the case based off of all the footage that has been released so far. The next question asked if there are numerous ways to complete each level or area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The game in its whole is a mix between more linear section and more open-ended big areas. And in those open-ended areas, you can absolutely choose what missions to tackle, and there are also multiple ways to do that. Like, we have a lot of different options in terms of stealth, hand-to-hand combat, even gun combat, traversing around using your whip. So we try to give the player agency to allow, like, what would Indy do here, and let you role play almost as Indiana Jones and try to accomplish the mission as you see fit.
So yes and no. In the more open areas, you will have more options, while in the smaller ones, there is less options, making it more linear in those instances. I think this is perfectly fine to have both options, as long as they make sense within the story. The next question asked about replayability.
Well, actually for this game, because it's so open-ended, we're thinking about replayability a little bit different than, for example, the Wolfenstein titles. In this game, we allow you to go back and revisit previous areas to really explore all the content there is there and to 100% the game. And we have the journal, which is a key tool for this game, that basically it starts blank and you fill it out with your whole journey, your whole adventure goes in there, every photo that you take, every note that you find, and the idea is that when that's fully complete, that's when you've 100% of the game and see everything that game has to offer.
So when you say revisit areas, do you mean like travel back to an area, or more like a chapter select?
It's more like a chapter select. There's a tweak to it. We allow you to bring back any abilities or equipment that you have unlocked. So it's kind of it's a narrative break in some ways, but it's really good for being able to explore and exhaust everything that there is into the game.
Go for it.
The game is at point very big, so there is plenty of opportunities for exploration, and that's something we constantly try to push the player to indulge in. And as you go along, you will find, there are things that I maybe missed, there are things that I want to revisit, there are things that I want to explore more.
And it's really important as well, because we leave a lot of content here as optional. Like, the story is really, really important, and for the people who just want to explore that, the game is going to be shorter, but for the people who want to experience everything, there's a lot of things to explore, and it's a really big game.
This is interesting. We can go back and replay any chapter that we have already completed, and we get to keep our character progression. They did mention that this does in some ways break the narrative, but I disagree. I think it can enhance the narrative because we will have additional options to choose from. Personally, I like this idea. The last question in this interview asked about the character development.
throughout the game you will find these adventure books. These are books that are in the world, like interesting books that each one of them contain an ability. And you can unlock that ability using adventure points. And adventure points is something you find by exploration, by completing mysteries and missions and finding these notes and filling out your journal. So it's almost like kind of a skill system, skill tree.
Again, this is another interesting take. Kind of like skill trees, we will be able to develop and learn new abilities through books that we find in our travels. I wonder just how many there are, and more importantly, what they are. Either way, I'm looking forward to finding out. The IGN crew also got an advanced look at the game in terms of gameplay. Their take on it was that it was a cross between the Chronicles of Riddick, Wolfenstein, and Hitman. If this is true, then this game is going to be very cool. They went on to talk about how there are some areas that are locked off to the player until they have a proper disguise. Even after getting said disguise, there are certain enemies that you will have to avoid because they can see through your disguise. This is something we have seen Indy do in the movies many times over, so including the disguise feature in the game is a welcome sight. I just hope it is implemented well. It also appears that this could be the case because not only do you wear disguises, but you will also have to do tasks based on said disguise. So, for example, if you are disguised as a waiter, you will have to pour drinks, and so on. We also learned that there is a journal and camera that we carry in our inventory, and we use these for a variety of reasons. One such use is to help solve puzzles. Another is to gain adventure points. These points are what we use to unlock new perks or abilities. They also mentioned that for most of the game, we are in first person, and there are some points where you go into third person for certain things. Personally, I prefer the first person perspective, so I hope that the third person is either able to be turned off or when you have to go into it, that it is for a short period of time. The Xbox crew also sat down with Axel and Jens in an interview about the game. The first question was really just an icebreaker type of question, which was just asking about how the game came to be from just an idea to now being very close to release. There was not anything that has not already been said many times over, so we're going to just jump to the next question. This question asked about how the game is prioritizing all the adventure from the films within the game.
It's really about putting you into the shoes of Indiana Jones, like allowing you to play out this fantasy. What would you do as Indiana Jones? And with that obviously comes the iconic whip, being able to solve mysteries, escape traps, and doing all these things that we know and love from this iconic hero.
This was a straightforward answer. I didn't expect much to be given in terms of revelations about the game, but still, nice to hear what the thought process is. The next question asked what the combat and exploration will look like in the game.
So, it all comes back to the character, what could you do? So, combat, compared to, we come from a background of working on Wolfenstein for a really long game, like big, double-wielding shotguns. This game is not that. This is much more adventure-focused game. So that means exploring more open-ended environments, having proper puzzles into the game that's challenging for the player to solve without you getting stuck, being able to scale the environment using your whip, but also, the combat. Like Indy is known for his knuckle-busting, brawler-style combat, so punching enemies in the face or even picking up a banjo and smashing them over the head. It's all about trying to recreate that really almost comedic matinee-style adventure.
Still not a lot of information, but it did sound like there will be objects that we can interact with and potentially even use as weapons. I guess we shall see exactly how it works once the game releases. The next question asked about the puzzles we will see.
Absolutely. This is one of the kind of new type of features that we haven't done so much about with before at Machine Games. So that was a really interesting challenge. And as I mentioned, we want to make real puzzles. We want you to be this kind of professor, archaeologist. So there's a lot of games, big games out there that kind of dumb down the puzzles for the sake of just making sure the player gets the full experience. We have tried really hard to just make them exciting to explore and build all these systems, like we have the camera and the journal to help you through the puzzle. You get to investigate and discover, and if you still do get stuck, you have the camera, you can pick it up, you can snap a photo of the puzzle, and Indy will provide a little clue what you need to do. You can take another one if you get deeper, so you don't have to go off to YouTube to see the solution.
Nice.
It's also extremely important to try to hit the sweet spot of making sure that we have these complicated puzzles from a game mechanic point of view, but we also need to make sure that they feel like they fit within the environments, like it's an actual part of this ancient temple that you have discovered, but there's a contextual sense to it. So there's many different components, but we feel that we are in a very, very good sweet spot at the moment where it sits.
So the puzzles sound like they're going to be hard, but not too hard. It's nice to know that there is built-in clues just by using the camera. I love a good puzzle, but I also don't want to get stuck and not be able to figure out how to progress the game. So it's nice that there is a way to help that along without having to resort to finding a YouTube video tutorial to get past it. The next question asked where we will get to go and explore in the game.
Yeah, so we have just the base narrative and the core story is already, it makes sure that we put the player on a global adventure. We get to visit a lot of different locations. The reasoning behind some of these locations is a twofold reason. One is, of course, that it fits the narrative, the story that we want to tell. The other one is also to make sure that we introduce new, interesting, exciting environments throughout the full campaign. So you will get this dynamic pacing of, wow, a jungle, a desert, mountains, you know. So we're really trying to make sure that that balance and that contrast feels exciting and thrilling at all times.
So not much in that answer. We know that this is going to be a game where we travel all around the world just from the trailer. Just how much of it we can explore remains to be seen. The next question asked how the whip will be used.
It's such an important feature. Like it's iconic for the character. So from day one, it's been incredibly important to get right. And we've had super talented engineers and animators working really hard to get the feeling of it feeling right. Like there's a mix of simulation, physical simulation in there. There's a mix of animation that takes over that allows you to do all these things that we want to do. You can attach it to things in the environment, pull them, use it to scale walls. It's also a combat tool, so really being able to use primarily as an entry point to combat is a very good use of the whip. You can use it to disarm someone, so you can turn around and then use it to pull an enemy into what we call clinch, so you can punch them. It's a very versatile tool, and getting that to feel right has taken a lot of work. We have the audio part of it. We actually
whip craft.
Super important.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic part of Indiana Jones' character. So the amount of work from broad spectrum within the team that's been working on it and working hard to make sure that it is where it is today, it's been not an easy task.
We even brought in experts, like we went to visit the Swedish bullwhip champion and our audio team went there and rigged mics and everything so we could get the sound just right and see how it's actually being used.
Of course, the whip is an iconic part of the Indiana Jones character, so it's nice to know that so much care went into making sure that every detail was done right. Also, the inclusion of an expert in using the whip is exciting because it means that the use of the whip will be correct. The next question asked about the authenticity in the game and what fans can expect in those terms.
A lot. So speaking to the point of working together alongside with Lucasfilm Games has been extremely, valuable and appreciated. We have been on a constant iterative basis with them, basically a weekly turn. We've been in contact with them. They are the experts of the IP, they are the experts of the franchise. So seeking their guidance sometimes and making sure that we are on the right path has been invaluable and, a really good experience. And speaking to what fans can expect, there are two sides to that. For people that are fans of the franchise and fans of Indiana Jones, this is absolutely your fix. This is your Indiana Jones fix, right? But when it comes to, and it's might sound weird, there are people out there that do not know who Indiana Jones is. We are capturing them also, because at the heart and at the core of Indiana Jones and the franchise is a fantastic world of deep narrative and a great adventure. So there is something for everyone in there.
It is good to know that the team has been in constant contact with Lucasfilm while creating this game to make sure that every detail falls in line with the rest of the franchise. Based on what we have seen so far, it looks great and, more importantly, feels like Indiana Jones. The last question asked if there are any Easter eggs from the films within the game.
Well, it wouldn't be a proper Easter egg if we spoiled it ahead of launch, so you have to play it for yourself. But as Axel said, there's a wealth of indie trivia and lots of really cool things to discover in the game. So,
if you know type thing.
You will not be disappointed if you're into that.
Obviously, I didn't expect them to answer that question, but it does sound as if there are some things that we will recognize from the films. Thankfully, we don't have much longer to wait, as Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will release on December 9th this year. What did you think of these interviews? Are you more or less excited for this game? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.